We are now on patch 14.1 and here are 5 of the best comps that you want to play to climb the ladder. Once again, I have talked to Snuble, who is challenger player for multiple sets, what comps will be the best to play in the current patch. And we are starting out by playing Hearts. So Heart is the one that you want to play if you're starting out the game with 3 Heart Steals. You want to have at least 3 in the trade. And the new thing about Heart Steal is that you have the chance to gamble a bit more. So you can either choose to play it normally, where you are getting some gold every 4 turn, or you can play the one where you are gambling a bit more. The main thing is just that you want to get up to level 8 as fast as possible and start swapping out your units to stronger units at level 8 and level 9. So this is like the end board that you're looking for, but you don't have to play this, but I will show you how you could play into this one. But the main thing is that you want to play around Ezreal in the mid to late game, Jhin as well if possible, and else we just want to put all our tank items on Illari. In the mid game we want to put tank items on Zed as well, and Bruiser tank items on Yorick when we get to that point. So instead of just looking for this, instead you should probably look for this, which is a really stable board at level 8. So you're trying to get to level 8 as fast as possible without losing too much health, and you don't really look for the board that I showed you before, but rather look for this because it's a really cheap board and it's something that you can stabilize at a level 8 no problem. And then you just have to swap out the units for stronger units. So let's say Cassandra, for example, he's a Sentinel. That is what he brings to the table at this point. And then you just have to find one that are stronger. That could be Mordekaiser, and it could be, in the best case, Blitzcrank. So you're just putting that in. Once again, looking at Gragas, we're finding someone who is a Bruiser instead. And what we know right now is that Zac just got a buff, but in the best case, we are getting something like Illari. But let's say we're just getting Zac for now. And else, what do we have here? Echo is a quite good unit. Sentinel is what he brings to the table. So we don't really have any other units that are stronger right now. So let's just keep him for now. Aphelios brings in Rapid Fire and he brings in Heartsteel, but what we're looking for now is just getting stronger, and we don't really mind skipping Heartsteel. It could also be that we have Ezreal as a Heartsteel headliner, so we don't really skip it. But anyways, we are taking out Aphelios and putting in something either as Lucian, or we could also play Jhin, whoever we just hit. It could also be that we are taking out Caitlyn as well. And then we have a quite good backline. So at this point, we are quite happy about our backline units. We would obviously put something in like Brew Buff on our main carries. We will also like to have some sort of crit on them as well. We could also go for something like Giant Slayer on Jhin, since he is mainly hitting the closest unit as he can. So we want to have that to break down the tankiest units in the front line. We could also take something like Last Whisper on Ezreal to take away the armor. We could also build something like Even Shroud on one of the units that we are hitting, so we don't really have to play Last Whisper. But here it's still the same. We have the backline units now, and we just want to swap out these units to stronger units. So if we're stable, we want to get to level 9, and then we want to put in one more strong unit. And let's say we're getting Illari, which is probably the best case. But else we could also put in something like Thresh, which is a really good unit. And we're probably even gonna play it over Zac. And we could also take in Yorick, so we have the 2 Guardian units. So this is like the way that you want to play it. The units that I showed before is the ones that you're looking for, and then you just want to get up to level 9 and start swapping out your units. Just think units like Yorick, Illari, Jhin, and Lucian is all good units to always play. And then we have Blitz, Thresh, and something like Poppy, which are 3 units that you can always put in. They're all good, all of them. You don't really need items or traits to be active to have an impact. So that is like the units that you're always putting in. Zed is fitting quite well in most comps, so that is something you always also can play in all of these kind of comps. So these 3 units, and then plus whatever you find, and having to 2-star, just gonna put in some way. When it comes to items, as I said before, Illari tank items and Jhin and Ezreal some sort of mana item, and else just crit and damage on them. Next up we have true damage with Caitlyn. So basically you just want to play this comp if you have the chance to get a spat. That is like the only main reason that you're playing this comp. You probably don't really want to force it without dispatch, but are you having that chance to get it? We probably just can go for this no matter what. So this is like your main board. You want to have 6 in the trade, and then you want to have one of these emblems on Caitlyn. Obviously, before you're finding Kiana, you want to play Yasuo instead. And whenever you are finding Kiana, you're just gonna take Yasuo out. So what you want to do is to have some sort of Giant Slayer on Caitlyn, which is probably her best item, and else you can just play whatever. It could be Spear of Sojin, it could be Hurricane, even Deathblade as well, but Hurricane and Sojin is quite good on her next to Giant Slayer. And else you're just gonna put in tank items on Echo, unless you're gonna have one of these 3 units. If you get one of these to 2-star, you can just put tank items on them, and then you're else just gonna play this board. Not much else to say. If you get Dispatch, go for this comp. If you're not getting Dispatch, you should probably skip it. Akali is probably gonna be your secondary carry, and she can use tons of different items. What you should look for is something like Hand of Justice. You could also go for Bloodthirster. You can even go for Edge of Night, but it is probably a good idea to have at least one healing item, but else you can almost play whatever that makes damage or healing her. As said before, tank items on the 4 cost that you're getting to 2-star. It doesn't have to be Poppy, it could also just be Thresh or whoever you're getting to 2-star, which is a tanky unit. Next up, we have Pentakill, and Pentakill is probably gonna be one of the most played comp in this patch. They got a massive buff, and what you really want to do is to get to 7 in Pentakill if possible. And one way to make it way easier is to get a Spatch or an Emblem and put it on Akali. Do we do that, we have a massive spike since we can get to 7 Pentakills before we are getting to level 9 very easily, and without playing some of the weakest units like Olaf. So what we are looking for is the 7 Pentakills, and then we want to have 3 super fans if possible. We could also just swap them out later, but let's just for now say we have these 3 units. This gives us an Archangel on Karthus, and then we else just want to have Spear of Sojin as best case, and else we could also use something like Adaptive Helm instead. And then we just want some sort of damage item. That could be Jewel Gauntlet, it could be Giant Slayer, or anything else that makes damage. Other things to be aware of is that we want Akali, who wants Hand of Justice and red buff. Even it got nerfed, it's still probably her best item. And then we just want the emblem as well. We can play this comp without the emblem, but it just makes it way stronger if we get the emblem. So else we could just play something like Titans. It's probably not her best one, but it could be used. But else we can also just play anything else that keeps her alive. That could also be Edge of Night. Else we just want to have items on Mordekaiser, and he can use tank items or similar to tank items. Are we in a situation where we really want to play this comp and we are seeing ourselves having, let's say, 4 Mordekaisers on the bench and seeing Mordekaiser as a pentakill headliner, we can pick it up and take him to 3-star and be our main carry next to one of these 2 guys. But else we want to have Karthus as pentakill if possible. We could also play Viego. I prefer not to put too many items on him, but are we playing him as our headliner? We want him as pentakill and with similar items to these. If he's not the headliner, we probably just gonna play around Karthus and Mordekaiser and Akali. Do we not have the emblem, we're just gonna play the same comp and try to get to level 9 to have 7 in Pentakill. Or if we are playing the Executioner one, where we pick Karthus as Executioner, we're just gonna play 5 in Pentakills and 4 in Executioner if possible. And that means we kind of have to put in something like Vex. And then we're just gonna swap it around. And then we're just gonna play for 5 in Pentakill instead. Next up, we have Disco Twisted Fate. And this is one of the other comps that's going to be really popular this patch. So the main thing is that we are trying to get up to level 8 as fast as possible and are rolling for headliner Blitzcrank or Twisted Fate. And we do prefer to get the Disco one, but we could also play the Dazzler with Twisted Fate if we have to. One of the reasons why this comp is way better than before is some of the units got a buff, included Twisted Fate. He is now even stronger than before. And what you really are looking for is these units. And from here, you just want to add in whatever that you find that fits the comp. Right now, there is 6 units, and that means at level 8, we have space for 2 more. And a starting point would probably be to have Lulu as well, since she fits the board really well, and she is buffing up Twisted Fate as well, and are seizing the other units. Another thing you want to do is to have a Bruiser unit in. You can take in Illari if possible. And what you also want to do is, before you're fighting Illari, you could play another Bruiser unit, and that could be something like Zac. We don't really know how strong Zac is right now, but he did get a buff So he is probably the best one to play right now. You could also just go for something like Zed, which we already know is quite good. But whenever we are fighting Illari, she will come in. The last unit that we're looking for will either be Sona or Sig. So you could argue that you want to put in Sona instead of Lulu, depending on how strong your board is. If possible, we are itemizing Sig as well, and also Lulu or Sona, depending on which one you are hitting. You're probably gonna put in Sona whenever, but you could argue to play Lulu instead. So when we come to items, we want some sort of attack speed items on Twisted Fate. He wants something like Rage Blade. He could also use something like Static Shift. He could also use something like Spear of Ocean. And after the buff on Murillo, we are probably going to use Murillo as well on Twisted Fate. Tank items will go on Blitzcrank and Echo. And then we're just going to have classic AP and mana items on Sig. And are we getting other extra items? We're probably going to put them on Illari. So get to level 8. Try to hit one of these 2 headliners and then get to level 9 as fast as possible. Think this board as like a stalling board, where you just want to stall as long as possible and even maybe get to overtime, since Twisted Fate is a scaling unit and is quite good the longer the game goes. Next up, we have Riven with 8-bit or Edgelord. So this is like your board at level 7 where you're gonna spend the most of your gold. The one thing you want to be aware of is that you want to have Riven as the headliner, and you do want to have some sort of Quicksilver. It could also be something from the augments, but Quicksilver is probably your best and most important item. Else you just want to have some sort of healing item. It could be Bloodthirster, but if you do get a healing item from Artifact, that could be even better, but else Bloodthirster is probably your second item. Third item could be a damage item. In best case, we're going for a Giant Slayer to get through the front line and get to the back line. And else it could just be whatever you can fit in. Maybe even something like Infinity Edge, or you could play something like Starek or similar. But if this is something you can get, go for it. The good thing about this comp is that you kinda can use a lot of cloaks, which all of the other comps is not really a fan of. So 1 cloak, 2 and 3 of them already. And if you look at all of the other comps, they don't really prefer to get them. So you get to level 7 and play this board, get Riven as a headliner. And if you're getting her as a bit, you can take out Corki and then just play something else that are stronger. Whenever you get her to 3-star, you are looking for level 8, and in this case we obviously gonna take Corki out, and then we can play something like Kane, and we could also play something like Yone. So you're getting 5 in Edgelord and 4 in 8-bit. So this is a bit of a hard comp, since you have to be aware of how the other units are standing. So if you're standing in this side, you want to be aware of that you can get to the backline and you're not stuck on something. So you kind of have to play Caitlyn in the same side as Riven, since she can help her getting away from being stuck. So if she can kill a unit fast, she can get to the backline faster. So let's say that she wants to get to this unit and they have a quite strong unit in front of. Let's just say this is super strong and tanky unit. You want to get past as fast as possible. And if she is standing by herself and killing Gragas forever, she's not really getting to the backline. This is just an example. Gragas is not that tanky, but you get the point. If she's standing over here, she have a long road to maybe get all the way over to Nami. So we want to have the shortest way, but also have the units around her that can make her able to get through that unit. Let's say that the unit is something else. Let's say it is Ahri instead. Ahri is quite good at smashing down units, so we don't really want to put Riven here. Then we have to get from the other side and take the long road. Be aware that you want to have the shortest road, but also which unit is standing up here. If it's a unit that are really good at taking one unit down, we probably want to play it like this instead. But if it is a unit that are not really killing one single unit, then we want to play it like this instead. Quite good comp. If you're getting a lot of cloaks, you have the option to go for it. And other things to mention is in a few days, I'm gonna make the tier list for this patch. And if you want to learn from Snuble, which is the challenger player I mentioned in the start of the video, you can check out his stream. He's streaming almost every single day, and I'm gonna link to that in the description. See you in a couple days. Have fun and good climbing.